My discussion this morning is innovation at the Verge, and that title was around before Microsoft called and said, "I'd like to come speak at the Convergence conference." So it was like a perfect fit. You couldn't have asked for better connection in terms of what you've been doing for 11 years here, and what I've been studying basically for the last 6 years, which is what is the 21st century route to innovation? How many feel this weight of growing complexity, that it is a lot more complex today than it was, let's say, 10 years ago? Raise your hand if you have that feeling. All right, good, then this is going to make sense. Good. Innovation is a theme. It's a very important theme. And so running through this whole discussion is going to be a way to make you better innovators. I want to read a quote from someone. It was written in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago. It was about innovation. For centuries, people assumed economic growth resulted from the interplay between capital and labor. Today, we know these elements are outweighed by a single critical factor: innovation. Innovation is the source of U.S. economic leadership and the foundation for our competitiveness in a global economy. But our status as the world's center for new ideas cannot be taken for granted. Anybody want to guess who wrote that? Bill Gates. All right, let's start off with two puzzles. Puzzle number one. A company named KUKA that makes robots, very fine robots. They're a global company now, but they're basically European-centered. Had developed a very interesting robot. Very powerful, very strong, very agile. It would stand in the center of its space. It could reach 15 feet this way, and of course in a full rotation. Had a 30-foot diameter, and then reach in a hemisphere of 15 feet above it. They dominated their marketplace. They really kind of sold it where it needed to be sold. And one of their people were sitting down and said, okay, where can we grow our market? Where could we possibly go to grow our market? I'd like you to think just for 30 seconds. Where would you go if, in fact, you've got the kind of the manufacturing side handled? Where might you go with this robot to, in fact, increase sales? So just ponder on that for a second. Now, there's logical places, but here's where they went. They created a thing called Robo-Coaster. It's the combination of a robot and a roller coaster. They literally stepped outside of their field, went to the roller coaster people and said, look what we have. Can we, in fact, partner in such a way as to create a new kind of ride? And Robo-Coaster is it. By the way, 4 people at the end of that arm. It articulates, it dives, it moves, it changes. They have a new market, ladies and gentlemen. Both created new categories, new products that weren't there before, and both are exemplars of the kind of thinking and the kind of exploration that, if we do it, will give us innovations in the 21st century. The third relationship is the most complex. It's called mutualism. Mutualism is about 2 or more living elements getting together based on their differences and creating a partnership to solve problems that are good for them both to be solved. Mutualism, the combination of differences to create partnerships that allow you to solve problems you couldn't solve. I win, you win. By the way, the partnership wins. It's what's called the triple win. The new answer is that the highest rate of breakthrough innovation does not occur in the center where the competition is highest. It occurs at the edges of the ecosystem where the competition is the lowest, at the verge. Now let me define verge for you. Verge is where something and something different meet. That's the verge. An ecosystem is also called an ecotone, but I want the larger meaning here. So we're going to use the term verge. It's where something and something different. So where one ecosystem runs into another ecosystem, that's a verge. And what the ecologists discovered was, at that point, was where innovation really got radical. Prius is an example of innovation at the verge. We have a gasoline engine. Where are we looking? At the verge between electric motors and batteries and cars. And what Prius did is they said, oh, look at that. Now, if we can adapt what they've got and bring that over, we can use those resources and actually build a car, by the way, that gives us wonderful competitive advantage because nobody else is doing it. All right, now, there are 4 Verge relationships. I want to illustrate this with a graph, but let me say them quickly, and then I'll show you how we picture them. One is enter the virgin territory where there are no competitors. That was that FedEx thing. Number 2, partner with elements in new territory to compete over there. Number 3, partner with other elements in the new territory to bring back advantages to your environment. And then last, improve elements in the new territory with your technology ideas, but you do not become dominant in any way. Now, let me give you some more examples, and you can kind of measure these examples against what we just talked about. University of Southern California, just up the road, has developed an inkjet house construction machine. Now, inkjet is, of course, that's not really what it is, but it works on the theory. You know, an inkjet squirts out a little drop of ink and prints. Well, clearly that concept has been expanded, and what they're doing now is they're basically squirting out concrete. And it's basically going across as if it's a blueprint underneath it, and it's squirting the concrete where it should be and misses where it isn't, and back and forth, and then it builds up a layer, and it builds up a layer, and at the top you get the walls, you got your house. By the way, how many like that as an idea for building a house? Raise your hand if you think that's kind of cool. 48 to 72 hours to construct a house. All right, that's what we're talking about. Innovation at the Verge. Here's another non-technology example. General Motors, having problems with quality. This is in the mid-90s. From the time the error occurs on the line, it's about 90 days before they pick it up, which means 90 days of errors. The vice president who's in charge of this stuff is reading the paper in Michigan one day, and he's reading this article about the Center for Disease Control and the fact that they had just come to Michigan to identify and find the source of a disease that was in a local school system. And they had done it in 72 hours. He said, let's see, it takes me 90 days to find my disease. You want to think about it that way, right? It takes them 72 hours for them to do it. What do they know that I don't? So he called up CDC, had them come up and present the protocols that they use for doing this. General Motors took those protocols and adapted them and went from 90 days to about 12 days. Now, again, here's the question. Would you think, in the obvious sense, that GM should have gone to CDC to get help with their quality? Doesn't work that way. But it does work that way if you understand innovation at the Verge, looking for the differences. Now, I've actually got 125 more examples. I will not go into those, but here's what, and you will start to see them as you're looking around. You'll say, oh, look at that combination, okay? But there are also some super verges I want to point out, and that is platforms that are so powerful that everybody is looking at them for a verge. Now, a friend of mine, Jerry Allen, who's an architect and a teacher, said, most of the big ideas of the 21st century will be combinations of the great single ideas of the 20th century. So I leave you with this thought. At the intersection of differences lies the opportunity for innovation.